Do you ever meet somebody and just immediately when you meet them, you say, oh, I like that person? Do you ever have that experience? Yeah. You know, I met Jim Maccabee, I don't know, probably a year or so ago. And immediately I said, wow, I really like him. And then as he began to be in classes together, as we were studying some Unity material, it became more obvious to me what I really liked. Jim Maccabee is somebody I've discovered, this is just from my perspective, who is very honest. He's very, very honest about his journey in this mystery of life. And we absolutely invite that honesty wherever we are in this journey of mystery. So would you, last week, Jim came up to me and he says, Pastor, calls me Pastor. That's beautiful. Beautiful. He says, Pastor, he said, I got something I want to say about Black History Month. Would you give me 10 minutes? I listen to that. I always listen to that when there's that kind of inspiration and desire to share something from the heart. So would you welcome Jim Maccabee as he shares about Black History Month?
You know you're getting up there in age when you look at a Super Bowl halftime and all the scantily clad women dancing and gyrating, and you say to yourself, this is so ridiculous. you know you're getting up there, and so it's a gorgeous day today, just beautiful out there. When I left home, it was a little bit cloudy, and when I got to Northville and Miles, the sun came out, and it just made the day even better. First of all, I want to say shout out to my country, the United States of America, which I love so much. The United States might be the greatest experiment in Republican government ever. And it's not because we have military bases in over 130 countries, 900 bases. It is because people can come here from anywhere in the world and make their dreams come true in a relatively short period of time. That's what makes this country great. Even with the skeletons in its closet and some blood on its hands, it's still the greatest country. Certainly, African American history would start in the United States, but I'm going to come back to that. But first, I want to talk about what Africa has given the world, especially through Ethiopia, Egypt, Ghana. At one time, all the great universities were in Africa. All of your Greek philosophers, Thales, who's called the first Greek philosopher, Plato, not so much Aristotle and Socrates, but almost all your other philosophers studied in Egypt. Plato spent 13 years in Egypt. Archimedes, the great mathematician, spent 22 years in Egypt. And this at a time when the life expectancy was probably less than 50 years old. So Africa has given quite a bit to civilization moving forward. And anyway, each civilization stands on the shoulders of the previous one in order to move forward. In 711 AD, a group of Africans called Moors crossed the Straits of Gibraltar into Spain and ruled there for 700 years. 700 years. I want to read to you what a historian has said about the Moors in Spain. At its height, Cordova, the heart of Moorish territory in Spain, was the most modern city in Europe. The streets were well paved, with raised sidewalks for pedestrians. During the night, 10 miles of streets were illuminated by lamps. This was hundreds of years before there was a paved street in Paris or a street lamp in London. Cordova had 900 public baths. We are told that a poor Moor would go without bread rather than soap. Education was universal in Moorish Spain, available to all, while in Christian Europe, 99% of the population was still illiterate, and even kings could not read or write. At that time, Europe had only 2 universities, while the Moors had 17 universities. These were located in Almeria, Cordova, Granada, Jaén, Malaga, Seville, and Toledo. So Africa has given quite a bit to the world, and there's no need for us to be ashamed of what other people think. A lot of times in the media and organizations, when they talk about Black history, they leave out the accomplishments that blacks have done in the past and have overcome slavery. Hundreds. There was a show on TV before the Super Bowl. It was called Black Honors, and I watched the show to see if they were going to talk about some black heroes in the past, but they did not. They just talked about museums where you could go and see how bad blacks had been treated, but never anything about people who overcame those disabilities. So I want to talk about some of the black heroes that have come up through America. First was Phyllis Wheatley. Phyllis Wheatley was born in 1753. She was brought here, kidnapped, and brought here to America when she was 7 or 8 years old. It is said that after less than 2 years of education, she was able to read the classical British novels. She was able to read Latin and Greek. I'm sure she couldn't speak those, but she could read it. Crispus Attucks was a free man. He was the first person to die in the American Revolution. And actually, during this episode, there was a group of Bostonians and Crispus Attucks was part of it. They were throwing rocks at British soldiers. And the British soldiers turned around and shot into the crowd, and Crispus Attucks was the first to die. And just as an aside, John Adams, our second president, he defended the British soldiers in court. So that's just some of our history. George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver was probably the greatest agricultural scientist that this country ever produced. He discovered more than 300 uses for the peanut and hundreds more for pecans, soybeans, and sweet potatoes. George Washington Carver. You don't hear enough about him. He lived till he was about 84, I think. Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington founded Tuskegee Institute, one of the great black colleges. And he was a great orator and educator. He gave a famous speech in Atlanta that some people kind of scoffed at. And in his speech, he pushed black people to learn the trades, even at the expense of voting or integration. The most important thing to him was that we be able to build and take care of ourselves and repair things. That was the most important thing to him. And you can't talk about black heroes without mentioning one of the greatest in the country. And this was so many years ago, Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was the Martin Luther King Jr. of his time. He was smart, he was eloquent, and he met with Abraham Lincoln quite a few times. I think they were friends. And he met with Lincoln urging him to issue an Emancipation Proclamation. So I think that it's up to us as individuals to get this word out about Black history and not leave it up to schools where some of them are just propaganda mills, and leave it up to organizations who have an agenda. I think it's up to us to get this out, get this story out about what Africans have given to the world. I would hope that while we never forget the past, we not look back with a bitterness that obscures the limitless opportunities that we have today, and that we look forward to the future. Thank you very much.
Isn't it clear that he had put a lot of heart into this for a long, long time? And what a beautiful, beautiful presentation, Jim. Thank you so much. Beautiful, truly beautiful. You know, it was Dr. Martin Luther King who said, "I can never be all that I'm called to be until you're all that you're called to be." Unity is a job where we both work to build one another up. We both work to build one another up. We both work together to see our divinity. I'd like to start this talk this morning by thanking again Beverly Abbott. Where's Beverly? Beverly's over here. Brenda Bay, Marjorie Scott, Yana Ware, TK, Tanya Kinlow, Maxine Williams, for just their work earlier in the month celebrating Black History Month. And I'd like to thank Ebony and Ivory, Marjorie and Elaine Slay for just making Soul Food Sunday. Would you stand up, Elaine? Yeah. And everybody who worked to make Soul Food Sunday a special day, would everybody just stand up? We'd like to give you some thanks. That was just beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And of course, this morning again, thanks to Jim and to Pam. And last but not least, I would also like to thank another one of my dear African American friends who works so hard to coordinate and support so many. Would you give Vivian Miller some love? One of the things that's been so clear as I've really just been right there watching is there's this sincerity and this deep passion around the importance of celebrating Black History Month, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It was last year, we had finished our month of Black History Month, and Gay came up to me, and she says, "David, that was nice. It was a really nice celebration, but next year give it a little more oomph." Give it a little more oomph. So this is our job this month. Are we giving it a little more oomph? All right. I listen. All right. Last week as I listened to TK and Maxine and this morning to Jim, the one thing that is so clear is their honesty. Their honesty about the challenges they faced as overcoming as African Americans. And their honesty that there's still a lot of feelings around the injustice of the past and the current injustice. But there's another message that I heard every single time, and I heard it this morning. That's not going to stop me from overcoming. It's not going to stop me. We can do much better, and last week the message was so strong. I will rely on God and be a powerful aspect of bringing the much better. How about you? Yes. This morning I'd like us to visit the spiritual truth that self-honesty actually invites spiritual awakening. When we're totally honest, we're totally aware of what's present with us, we open this space and we begin to discover in greater ways that I'm not a victim. I am a powerful and divine creator. That's what self-honesty does. I'm not a victim. I'm a creator, and I know I've been called to bring this new day. It's me. I'm the one. I'm the one called. So let's see how that consciousness is bringing us a brighter day. This consciousness that we've talked this morning about, realizing that it's oneness and realizing that we need one another and realizing that we are empowered creators. You know, it was back in the late 1800s, if we can put that slide up there, that there were this whole host of beings in the U.S. that began to realize this consciousness. There were these whole host of beings in the 1800s that really wanted to bring forth what they were becoming so conscious of that were revealed in the sacred scriptures of the tradition here in the United States. Many were realizing that the ultimate message and demonstration of Jesus was something we would call today unity consciousness. That this is where he was coming from. He was in a unity consciousness, and he was coming from this place that I am an empowered creator, and so are you. You know, in unity, when we read the words of Jesus, when we read the stories of Jesus, it's us. The same words that are coming from him as I am is the truth of our being as well. That's what we see in unity. So there were these many in the late 1800s that began to see this. And let me just read for you a prayer from Jesus and see if we can't hear together just this importance he was teaching about that we're going to ultimately perfect ourselves, move into our own wholeness through unity, through working together with one another to allow this divinity to come forth in one another. This is found in John 17, 21, 23, for those who enjoy reading the scriptures. Father, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they may also be in us, so that the world may believe you sent me. You sent me so that everyone can awaken. And you've been sent to awaken so that everyone can awaken. No difference in that regard. He goes on to say, the glory which you have given me, I have also given to them, so that they may be one, just as we are one, I and them, and you and me, that they may be perfected in unity. Do you hear it? As we all begin to awaken to our unity, to our empowerment, we move into realizing together this moving into our perfection, into our wholeness, into our complete expression of our divinity. This is our work. And every challenge we face along the way is about this awakening. It's all for us. It's all for us. So in the late 1800s, many began to awaken to this, and many in the East were speaking of it, at the true nature of all reality is oneness. And so as you see up here on this chart, there were just so many back during the periods of the late 1800s, the early 1900s, and there were these transcendentalists. Everybody heard about the transcendentalists, right? I just want to visit them a little bit this morning because they played a major role in African American evolution towards more freedoms through their own consciousness that we are all one and that we all are empowered creators. This was their message. There were the works of Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau and many other transcendentalists who were really having a major impact. And there were many African Americans who were reading this material, who became part of this movement. And so let me just read some of them. The first one is Phyllis Wheatley. She was the first, published African-American female poet, and she was a transcendentalist of this very same mind that we are of here at Unity. And she wrote poetry reflecting themes on spirituality and freedom and the human condition. The second one is a guy named William Cowper Nell. He was an abolitionist. Nell was deeply influenced by transcendentalist ideas, and his much influence on his own spiritual awakening. He spent much of his life advocating for equal rights. We're all one. Education and social justice for African Americans. Maria Stewart, another transcendentalist, African-American transcendentalist, was a powerful orator and writer. Stewart addressed issues of race, gender, and religion. She emphasized personal transformation, education, and moral upliftment. And the last one I'd like to mention, transcendentalist, was Alexander Crummell. He was a theologian, an intellectual. Can you hear that in Martin Luther? I mean, there were so many were waking up that were theologians, actually in the Christian movement. But they were deeply influenced by the East. They were deeply influenced by the teachings of Gandhi in the East and so much that was going on during this period, as you can see up here on this chart. And perhaps most notably of all influenced by these transcendentalists was Dr. Martin Luther King. I mean, that's well documented that he was a student of Thoreau and Emerson. All of these African Americans and all those here at Renaissance Unity were awakening to our oneness and to our own divinity. This is what I'm bringing forward this morning, is to see how powerful of a movement we are involved in. Yeah. This core teaching of ours. You know, I ask artificial intelligence this week to sum up the principal teachings of transcendentalism. I mean, that's what we do now, right? I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? That we used to have to go to the library and we collect information, and sometimes it would take weeks, months, years. Now it's right there. So I said to artificial intelligence, could you sum up for me the principal teachings of transcendentalism? This will blow your mind, okay? This is from artificial intelligence. Number one, the number one principle is the unity of all creation. We are one. Sound familiar? Principle one of unity. Number two, if that didn't blow your mind, this is really going to blow your mind. The innate goodness of humanity. Principle number two of unity. Number three, insight over logic. You know, if you're always just letting somebody tell you what knowledge is, they're going to steer you where they want to steer you. But the transcendentalist says, go within. Go within. You know, measure everything from within. Balance it from within. Unity's fourth principle. And this one might not blow your mind, but you're going to love it. Their fourth principle is spirituality beyond organized religion. You know, today, where we're at in our evolution is 75% of people who attend church now on a Sunday morning say what's most important to them is direct experience. They were saying it back then, that that's really what has the highest. And then their last one, and I think this one we can even start to be a little more transparent about in unity, and maybe even integrate it. Their fifth principle was the appreciation of nature. Nature held immense significance for the transcendentalists. They believed it was full of divine beauty and wisdom. Connecting with nature was a pathway to deeper understanding and enlightenment. You know, my wife, that's the way she connects. That's her church. And sometimes she will say to me, David, I really think that needs to be part of an integral part of the definition of the new church. I completely agree with her. I completely agree with her. I mean, we've got this idea that somehow we come together and we get sacred on Sunday morning, but it's all sacred. It's all sacred. So out of this same stream of transcendentalism, Unity is born, and we also know that divine science, religious science, science of mind, universal foundation for better living, and of course the universal foundation of living was founded by the African American woman Johnny Coleman. Did you know Johnny Coleman was one of the first 3 students of Charles Fillmore? Yeah, she really was. All these movements were founded on those first 2 principles in transcendentalism, the unity of all creation and the innate goodness of humanity. We even know now, we're even becoming awake now, that the very name that Jesus would have used for God was Allah. And what it meant was sacred unity. The sacred unity between the ground of our being and all the expressions, that everything is interconnected by the energy of love. That's the way he would have actually talked about it. But now sometimes we have this idea that God is some, anthropomorphic being off in the sky. But back then we lost it. He always had that understanding, and he was teaching from that. And this the Transcendentalists knew, Dr. Martin Luther King knew, we were all one, that we are all inherently good. Phyllis Wheatley knew it, William Cooper knew it, Maria Stewart knew it, and Alexander Crummell knew it. And we all know it here this morning. So I'd like to move into closing this talk if the musicians want to begin to come forward. And I want to read again that scripture from John. And just hear in this what is essential to realizing the fullness that we're here to express. The glory which you have given me, I have also given to them, so that they may be one, just as we are one, I and them, you and me, that they may be perfected in unity. As we awaken to our oneness, as we awaken to the other's divinity and our own divinity, it allows for us both to continue to evolve spiritually. Just like I said in the beginning, it was Dr. Martin Luther King who says, I can't be all I'm called to be until you're all you're called to be. And my favorite philosopher, Jackson Browne, the famous songwriter, said in his song, I always can find a way to weave him in there. He said in his song, Until Justice is Real is the name of the song. He said, look for another and you'll find it in yourself. Look to another and you'll find it in yourself. It was Charles Fillmore who said, our spiritual journey, it's a DIY program. It's a do-it-yourself program, but it's not, he said, a do-it-alone program. Yeah. That's the value of community, spiritual community. African Americans were banding together on their journey. And part of what they were doing, as I began to research more and more, and so many of you know so much more about this than I, but I did spend a fair amount of time this last couple of weeks reading about that so that I could get further up to speed. And one thing you learn is that they really moved together in appreciating song and community together. That it was core to the journey. That gospel music was core to the journey. You know, sometimes when you listen to gospel, you say, okay, some of those words aren't totally in alignment with unity. But the feeling is, right? The feeling is great. So we would just like to close this talk by moving into, the band is going to play a song from an old gospel that many sang together, and just be in the feeling of the liberation of it, of I'll fly away.